Okay, so let's begin with the beginning. Chapter 1, A Long Expected Party. How many of you have read The Hobbit before? Anybody? How does it begin? An unexpected party. Hobbit begins an unexpected party. This begins a long expected party. Tolkien's tying the two together that way. Okay? He doesn't need to. When The Hobbit was published in I'm off track. When The Hobbit was published in 1937, as I said, the first night of class, this feels like the first night of class, it was internationally acclaimed a classic for children. Okay? And then people wanted to know more. We want to hear more about hobbits and stuff. They had to wait 17 years. By the time this was announced, he already had a built-in audience. Okay? Plus, he published a couple of things between that and this. Smith of Wooten Major, The Adventures of Tom Bombadil, a couple other things. Okay? So, chapter 1, a long expected party. First page, I'm just going to point out a couple of things. Notice what we're told about Bilbo at the beginning. Now, Bilbo is not the major focus, obviously, of this story. He was of the Hobbit. The Hobbit was entirely about him. He was the Hobbit. Okay? So, we begin with Bilbo. Why? Because the party's really for Bilbo. Yeah, it's for Frodo, too. It's Frodo's coming of age party, but it's Bilbo's, unbeknownst to everybody else, it's Bilbo's going away party. Okay? And we get a very, very brief background, like a paragraph, about what happened previously. Now, if you've not read The Hobbit, and I didn't mention anything about this, you can read the prologue. Because the prologue kind of gives you some of the background for The Hobbit, and it gives you some other background information, okay, that can be useful. So we find out Bilbo returned from his journey roughly 60 years ago, okay, whatever that journey was. When he went on that journey, he was 50. So that would make him 110 now, all right? But then we began to hear, let me back up. Bilbo was very rich, very, very peculiar, had been the wonder of the Shire for 60 years, ever since his remarkable disappearance and unexpected return. So 50, 60, 110. And then the narrator kind of takes us back between that return and the now of 60 years later to give us an idea of how people kind of thought about Bilbo. And they say, for example, at 90, he was much the same as at 50. That is, physically, appearance-wise. He didn't look any different, really, than he did when he was 50. Okay? At 99, they began to call him well-preserved, but unchanged would have been near the mark. Why is this important?
The ring.
Okay, yeah, the ring, that comes up later. Why else is it important? Think of hobbits and think of us. Okay? Not many people, take that back, more do today than they used to, but still, not a whole lot of people live to 90. You know many 90-year-olds who look 50? No. So what's wrong? It ain't natural. Something's wrong here, okay? So, we end the beginning of that. It will have to be paid for. In other words, he's into something dirty. Something's wrong here, okay? So we find out, Bilbo's got cousins and such. And when Bilbo's 99, he adopts Frodo as his heir. They share a birthday September 22nd. Okay. Bilbo's birthday that is coming up is which?
111st.
111, 111st. Frodo's is 33. Together they make 144, one gross. That's how many people will be invited to the party. Okay. So, go on to pages 22 and 23. And we leave Bilbo and we leave Frodo aside for a moment, and we pick up with the gaffer, Sam's father, and Sandyman, Ted Sandyman's father, Ted Sandyman's going to come up in a moment, having beer at the local pub. Okay? Green Dragon. And they're talking about what's going on. And they're talking about Bilbo and Bilbo's wealth and such. Okay? And they're talking about how Frodo ended up being an orphan, that Frodo's mother pushed his father in the, and the gaffer essentially said, you don't know any of that, that's not true and such. And then he goes on and talks about stories that Sam has heard. Okay? Page 24 at the top. He said, my lad Sam will know more about that. He's in and out of Bag End, crazy about stories of the old days he is. He listened to all Mr. Bilbo's tales. Okay? And he talks about elves and dragons and such and such. So what do we find out about Sam right here? It's our first introduction to him.
He's into stories.
He's into stories. Okay?
Curious.
Louder?
Curious.
Okay.
He knows the Baggins pretty well.
He knows them pretty well. He doesn't play with Frodo. He's not Frodo's friend, per se. He's going to become his servant. Okay? So, Gandalf shows up, and I'm going to skip a bunch. We have the party. We have all the stuff brought in. We have the presents all wrapped and everything. And we're going to go to the end of the party. And Bilbo's making his speech. Where'd it go? And page 30. After he's kind of dissed some people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like you half as much as I should, and I like some of you more than I should like you. He says at the very end of the speech, I want to make an announcement. I regret to announce that though, as I said, 11 years is far too short a time to spend among you. This is the end. I am going. I am leaving. Now, goodbye. And he disappears. And at the same time, there's a blinding flash of light. Guests all blink. They open their eyes, and Bilbo's gone. Okay? And then they all start, crazy old Bilbo, And where we pick up again is page 32. Bilbo's back at number 4, Bagshot Row at Bag End. Why is it called Bag End? It's the end of the road. Okay? And Bilbo's hole goes into the end of the mountain, or the hillside if you want. So, Bilbo's there, he's packing up, and Gandalf stops by. And if you've seen the film, this is pretty different from what's in the film. Okay? He says, page 32, the little flash was surprising. Some of your, handiwork is what's Gandalf known for. Fireworks, man. Yeah, it's magic, though. This isn't, sulfur and gunpowder and such. At least we don't think. So, he says, I expect, you know best as usual. Gandalf says, if I know anything. He goes on and he tells Gandalf, right just past the middle of page 32, I'm old, Gandalf. I don't look it, but I'm beginning to feel it. In my heart of hearts. Well preserved. He says, no, why I feel thin, sort of stretched, if you know what I mean, like butter that has been scraped over too much bread. That can't be right. He doesn't know why. He doesn't know why he feels that way, though he is 111. Not many hobbits live to be this old. So he's up there with the oldest of the old. So he says, I need a change. Like, going to the mountains is going to rejuvenate him, or going to the beach is going to make him feel better, so to speak. Okay? So they keep talking. He says, I've made up my mind. I'm going to go. I'm going to leave the mountains. I'm going to go off, And he says, I'm going to finish my book, and it'll end. And he lived happily ever after to the end of his days. Gandalf, I hope he does. Nobody's going to read your book. He says, I've left everything to Frodo. Everything? Really? The ring? Page 33 at the top. You agreed, remember? Yeah, I suppose so. Where is it? Envelope. There on the mantle. Oh, no, it's here in my pocket. How'd that happen? Why shouldn't it stay there? That is, why shouldn't I keep it? Gandalf says, yeah, leave it behind, Bilbo. No, I don't want to part with it. And we're told A curious change came over his voice. It was sharp with suspicion and annoyance. You're always badgering me about my ring. Gandalf, well, I had to. Why? I wanted the truth. It was important. Magic rings are, well, magical, you know. It's not every day you find a magic ring. He says, you've had it long enough. You won't need it. Leave it. What does Bilbo assume Gandalf is getting at?
Gandalf wants the ring.
Gandalf wants the ring. He says, it's mine, I tell you. My precious. Now, if you've never read The Hobbit, you don't get that connection. But if you have read The Hobbit, you got to provide a voice. Because when Gollum says it's my precious, he doesn't just say my precious. What does he do? My precious. You know? Why? Because it is part and parcel of Gollum at this point. So he says it twice. Gandalf's, a little alarmed at that. It's been called that before, but not by you. So Bilbo comes out. If you want my ring yourself, say so. I won't give away my precious, I tell you. And Gandalf gets angry and says, you're going to see Gandalf the Grey uncloaked. You don't want to see that. He grows tall and menacing. Well, tall and menacing to Bilbo is what?
Standing up straight.
Anything taller than him.
Bilbo's like this tall. I would be tall and menacing. Right? I'm not tall and menacing to many people. Babies, And he's like, what, chill, man. What's come over you? What are you doing? I'm not a thief. I didn't say you were. He talks about the ring eating away at his mind. Gandalf's like, then, that's why another reason to leave it. Okay? So, we find out that's the reason for all the people at the party. Make it easier to give away one little thing because of the Hobbit custom of giving away birthday presents on your birthday. So invite a whole bunch of people, give out a whole bunch of stuff, and just kind of accidentally, put the ring in the boxes as well. So he puts it off. He puts it on the mantle and leaves. How's that different from the film? Gandalf takes it. He hands it to, or does this or something. And Gandalf takes it and there's only one time, early on at least, when Gandalf actually touches the ring. Okay? Which we'll talk about in a moment. It won't be brief. So, Bilbo leaves. Frodo comes in. And the next morning, page 40, Bilbo's talking with Gandalf, and he says, I nearly tried on Bilbo's ring. I longed to disappear. You don't want to do that. Why? What do you know? Well, what do you know? Gandalf asks Frodo, what do you know about the ring? You know what Bilbo told me. I've heard his story. Which story? Oh, no, not the one he told the dwarves. Not the lie. The real story. How he got the ring, he used it to get past Gollum, the whole 9 yards. Okay? So, Gandalf warns him about the ring. And it says, and I've got to leave. Frodo's a little surprised. He's expecting Gandalf to stay around for a while. And Gandalf says, bottom of page 40, I've merely begun to wonder about the ring, especially since last night. No need to worry. What was last night?
Talk with Bilbo.
Talk with Bilbo and Bilbo's actions and comments. Okay? What are you afraid of? Not certain. Notice, because he's not certain, he doesn't say anymore. He doesn't start offering possibilities. He's just, I'm not going to say anything. He says, I'll come back. I may be able to tell you more then. When will he come back?
17 years later.
He says, I'll come and see you again as soon as I can, but don't expect me openly. People think I'm a bad influence, blah, 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 blah. Then we get chapter 2, Shadow of the Past. Chapter 2, Shadow of the Past, is one of the two most important chapters of the entire novel. Not novel Fellowship of the Ring, novel The Lord of the Rings. The other most important chapter is the Council of Elrond. They're both chapter 2s. Shadow of the Past is chapter 2 in the first half of Fellowship of the Ring. Council of Elrond is chapter 2 in the second half. Okay? And in those 2 chapters, we get the full history of the ring, which helps us completely understand everything we need to know about the ring in order to help us know or understand everything that can happen as the journey plays out. Okay? So, page 43. Time goes on, and people start talking about Frodo, showing good preservation. Okay? His 40s are drawing to an end. His 50th birthday is drawing near. He kind of feels 50 is an ominous number. It's, why? That's the year that Bilbo went off on his journey. And it's unclear here whether that means drawing near, like it's coming up in a few months, or drawing near, like he's 46, 47, he's closer to 50 than he is to 40. Because, for just a moment, if we turn the page, take that back, turn a couple pages to page 46, we find out, we get a kind of a brief chronology, okay, of how long Gandalf's been away. It was just at this time that Gandalf reappeared after his long absence. For 3 years after the party, he'd been away. So that means he came back after 3 years. Okay? Then he paid Frodo a brief visit. During the next year or 2, so take 2 more, then he stopped. Then it's over 9 years. Well, that's 14 years right there. So 14, 33, 47. Yeah, that's drawing closer to 50. Okay. Go back to 43. So, people are talking about Frodo, and they're also starting to hear strange rumors in the Shire. Rumors of things going on in the big world. Now, what kind of technology do they have? Newspapers? None that we know of.
Elves in the woods. Stories from
Elves in the woods, dwarves walking along the east-west road, bringing news of what's going on. That's it. Okay? None of this, obviously. Gandalf hadn't been back, hadn't sent any messages. Frodo's blind, as it were. Elves are now seen in the Shire, passing westward. We don't know why they're passing westward, other than they're leaving Middle-earth. We don't know where they're going to, based just on this, because we don't know what leaving Middle-earth really means. Okay? What else? There's dwarves in unusual numbers on the east-west road. Okay? And every now and then they hear whispers of the enemy and the land of Mordor. Do we have any kind of parallel in the real world today of the enemy in the land of Mordor? Louder? Such as? Give me one. Give me an example. A parallel to the enemy in the land of Mordor.
I feel like Nazi Germany, there was rumors of Holocaust.
Okay. There actually weren't rumors of the Holocaust. The news media, New York Times, for example, knew entirely what was going on. They didn't publish it. The United States government knew, 1940, entirely. Okay?
Are you talking about like when the book was written or like now?
No, I mean like now, to take Tolkien's notion of applicability in the forward and look at it today. North Korea, possibly?
Russia, possibly.
Does North Korea, does Russia, does Germany, China, do they imply the kind of ominousness
They're stockpiling.
that
Preparing.
this implies?
I would say no.
Yeah, they've got stockpiling, maybe, weapons.
Because you can actively see individuals fleeing because of what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the difference between our world and this world, our technology. We are totally connected. You know, CNN headline news around the world in a minute, every 30 minutes. I mean, we can know literally what's going on. Okay? They couldn't.
Isn't it like what? Isn't the goal of Mordor like if Mordor won, like if the enemies from Mordor won, like the world would be completely different from what the world is now, right? So
From the world is now at the beginning of the novel. Yes.
So it's different than like China attacking the United States because that's like one. It's like the end of the whole world, is it not?
Yes and no. But if you know anything about China, China adheres to this one world idea, and it's not it's not new to Chinese communism. This is it's thousands of years old. And it's this idea in the Chinese ideology that China is destined to rule the world. It's part of their
Trade.
ideology. Well, it's not trade. It's
Part of the culture.
part of it's built into their culture, their cultural ideology. Once it became communist, that became communized. It's going to be this Chinese communist kind of system. And if you're familiar at all with the single season TV series Firefly, what do you have there? You've got the mixture of kind of Western capitalism and China, going on. We don't have a good parallel for this today. Why? Because we are too connected. We can see almost everything. This plays on what? The unknown. So maybe there are some among us today who can experience this. Children. Because what do some children, at least, still have fears of? And I'm not talking nuclear war, annihilation, climate change, all that stuff.
The dark.
The dark. The quote-unquote boogeyman. Things they don't understand. They hear noises at night, and the mind goes crazy, okay? But that's what Mordor kind of implies. Here's an example. It's not a great one, it's a slight one. I grew up in California in the 60s. I grew up in the Santa Clara Valley. Now it's called Silicon Valley. I remember literally going to bed at night in the late 60s when the Zodiac Killer was killing in the Santa Cruz Mountains. I remember literally being afraid that guy was going to come through a bedroom window. Seen him? Nope. How much did I know about him? Hardly any, but I'd heard of him. That was enough to just hear. Okay? That's kind of what this is like. So, top of 44. That name, Mordor, the enemy, the hobbits only knew in legends of the dark past. Like a shadow in the background of their memories. Look at that language. Like a shadow in the background of memories. Okay, first of all, are all memories clear and perfect?
No.
Nope. Farther back you go,
Darker they get.
darker, mistier they get. So it's one in the background, but it's a shadow in the background.
It's like Mirage.
It's almost like it's barely there, but you mention it, and what happens?
Comes
You know.
roaring back.
Like in some classes, I can just mention the name Arthur. People immediately think King Arthur, Excalibur, Merlin, etc. Okay? Why? Because that is a shadow on the background of a collective memory for Western European or British Europeans, etc., etc. It's not dark like this one is. Okay? It seemed that the evil power Mirkwood had been driven out, blah, 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 blah. Dark Tower had been rebuilt. Okay, so the Dark Tower had been rebuilt. That means that's real. Okay, so we could kind of have this kind of thing happen today. How so? What happened in 1988, 1989?
Berlin Wall went down.
Berlin Wall came down. prior to November, what was it, 88 or 89? 89. Prior to November 89, I never thought the Berlin Wall would come down. I never thought Soviet Russia would stop being Soviet Russia or the Soviet Union. Never in a million years. Okay? What if Putin tomorrow were to invade Germany? Germany couldn't stop it. On its own, Germany could do nothing to stop it. Okay? But what if he invaded Germany and split it again? Split Berlin right down the middle.
Cold War would start again.
Would it be a Cold War?
It depending on.
Because there'd be an awful lot of people over here who'd say, why does my Johnny need to die from, Johann? When Johann won't die for his own man, kind of a thing. Okay? But that would be the analogy of the rebuilding of the Soviet Union. Okay? Orcs multiplying. We don't really have orcs, Trolls are abroad, etc., etc. So we see Sam Gamgee and Ted Sandyman, like we saw the gaffer in Sandyman, his, Ted Sandyman's father, at the Green Dragon having beers. They're not having beers together. They're just at the pub together. I don't know if you've ever, been at a pub or a bar or whatever, somebody who's not necessarily your best friend comes in also and gets involved in the group dynamic or whatever. It's not always pleasant. That's how this is. Okay? Because Sam's talking about elves. He's talking about walking trees. And Ted Sandyman's like, come on, man. Everybody knows those things are real. We're going to see them later on. Okay? So, Gandalf finally shows up. Bottom of page 46. Gotta go a hell of a lot faster. And he and Frodo start to talk. Page 46 at the top. And they talk deep into the night, but then stop. And we're told at the bottom of the page, Frodo says, we started to say some things, and you said we should put that off till daylight. Why? Louder? You don't talk about dark things at dark. You wait till the sun is shining. Birds are singing. And flowers are blooming. And you put them all around you to make you feel cheery. Why? Because what Gandalf and Frodo are talking about are real things. You say the ring is dangerous, very bottom of the page. Far more dangerous than I guess. In what way? Notice, in what way? Singular. How is the ring dangerous? Like, is it going to, if I put it on, is it going to shrink and chop my finger off? In many ways. So you're wrong with your very premise, Frodo. It's not just one way. Far more powerful than I ever dared to think at first. Now notice, this is 46 pages in. Notice what Gandalf says here. So powerful that in the end, it would utterly overcome anyone of mortal race who possessed it. It would possess him. What did Gandalf just tell Frodo?
You can't beat the ring. Nobody can.
Bingo. If you possess the ring for too long, it will possess you. Period. Did Bilbo have it too long?
Not as long as Gollum.
Getting close. He couldn't stop thinking about it. Gollum, Bilbo had it how long? 60 years. Guess how long Gollum had it?
600 years.
600 years. Okay? Yes.
So the ring keeps them alive, right? Preserves them. So once Bilbo lets go of the ring, shouldn't he drop dead?
Not necessarily drop dead. He'll start. He'll start losing that,
Does it take time to like?
Yeah, it takes time for the power of it to wear off. I mean, some things like invisibility, you take the ring off, you're no longer invisible, kind of a thing. But in terms of its preservation, that wears off. That will wear down after a while. Gollum is still alive. He had it for 600 years. Okay? But bear that in mind. Gollum is still alive. Keep that sentence in mind when we get to the end of the novel. Because I think Gollum knows something at the end of the novel. Okay? So, anyone of mortal race who possesses it will be utterly overcome. Are hobbits mortal?
Yeah.
What does mortal mean?
You can die.
You can die. It also means you can be killed. Elves are mortal. They can be killed. Within Tolkien's cosmology, however, they can go off. They can leave Middle Earth, go off to the halls, what it's called, the halls of Mandos, stay there for a while, and then they can be reborn, reincarnated, back into Middle Earth. Okay? Hobbits can't. Humanity can't. Dwarves can't. Orcs can't. Some people say orcs possibly can because they're twisted, deformed elves. I don't think that's true. But. So, Gandalf goes on, and he talks about the rings. Where they were made, who they were made by, etc. And he talks about the great rings, top of 47. A mortal Frodo who keeps one of the great rings. Okay, what are the great rings? Ring of Power, the great ring.
3 elven rings.
The 3 elven rings, so that's 4.
7 dwarven.
The 7, yeah, I can't do that on my fingers. The 7 dwarf rings, that makes 11.
9 for more.
9, and then 9 for the mortal men. So there's a bunch of them. Any of those are the great rings. Does not die, but he does not grow or obtain more life. Now think about that. You don't die, but you don't get more life. Life doesn't get richer, fuller, better, more beautiful, more, your senses aren't on fire. You're like the Energizer Bunny. You just keep going. Until at last, every minute is a weariness. How many of you have stayed awake for 36 hours? 48. 72. Yeah, not many. Staying awake for 72 hours is quite a bit different than staying awake for 24 hours.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you see things.
You see things, you start to feel things that aren't there.
It's like you're drunk, honey.
And what happens when you finally sleep?
Oh, you crash.
You are dead to the world. Okay? With the ring, you never become dead to the world. It's 72 hours, 96 hours, 130 hours, 120 hours, etc. For how long?
Until you take it.
Forever. Okay? As long as you own that ring. And if he often uses the ring to make himself invisible, he fades. Notice, the one ring isn't the only ring that can make you invisible. The other rings can too. He becomes in the end invisible permanently and walks in the twilight under the eye of the dark power that rules the rings. Yes, sooner or later if he's strong or well-meaning to begin with, but neither strength nor good purpose will last. Sooner or later, the dark power will devour him. Why? Why, if he has good intent, good will at the beginning, why won't that destroy the dark power's intent?
The road to evil is paved with good intentions.
Road to evil is paved with good intentions. Possibly.
The ring is inherently evil.
The ring is inherently evil. Tolkien's going to tell us, Gandalf's going to tell us, Sauron poured most of himself into the ring. Now, he is still extremely powerful. It tells us how powerful he was before he made the ring. Okay? So, Frodo, ooh, how terrifying. How long have you known all this? Because he's like, you've been gone 15 years, man. What gives? Because I could have UPS this thing out of here, And so he says, how much did Bilbo know? He says, Bilbo didn't know anything. He didn't know anything more than he told you. He says, So again, how long have you known this? Frodo asks. Gandalf, known? And I could be reading into this, but I don't think so. Gandalf's a little put off by Frodo's second asking of that question. Look at his exact response. Known? Said Gandalf. I've known much that only the wise know, Frodo. In other words, who the hell do you think you are? Asking me how much I know. But if you mean known about this ring, I don't know. One might say. Why doesn't he know?
He hasn't experienced it firsthand.
He doesn't have the proof. He's going to get it in just a moment. There's one last test. But I no longer doubt my guess. Oh, when did I start to guess? Let's see, when was that? It was when the White Council drove the dark power from Mirkwood. Let's see, when was that again? Oh, that was when Bilbo was on his journey with the dwarves. That's when I started to guess. Well, that's 60 now plus 14, 15, 75, 80 years ago. You could have told me when I got the ring, So, he goes on and talks about Saruman the White. We're going to skip that. He says, I waited until Bilbo left. I've spent most of the year since then, bottom of 48, finding the truth. And he goes, and here's another clue. Bilbo felt better as soon as he left the ring. You go to a doctor's office. You stop smoking and almost immediately your lungs are better. And within a week this happens, and within a week this happens, and within 2 weeks your brain starts, doing stuff that didn't. You get rid of the ring, and the next day you start feeling like too little butter spread over too much bread, And it goes on, and you just start feeling better and better. Though, of course, you start to die again. So, he says there's only one power in the world that knows all about the rings and their effects, and that's Elrond, and we're not going to call him up and, ask. So, page 49. He keeps talking, Gandalf does, and he says, it would be a shame for the world if the hobbits were discovered by Sauron, enslaved by him. Frodo, why should we be? Why would he want us as slaves? Hobbits as miserable slaves would please him far more than hobbits happy and free. There is such a thing as malice and revenge. What's malice? Hatred?
It's extreme.
Wishing.
I could say every now and then, I hate this computer. What kind of hatred? Wishing bad things upon somebody else. Okay. Does it have a cause? No.
Revenge does.
Malice is more of like a stored up kind of thing. Like if I'm a malicious person, I don't just hate something because it's being annoying to me. I just hate everything. I hate you.
You're just a rotten son of a bitch. Yeah, it's just
You're not annoying to me. I just hate you.
Exactly. And everything. Okay? It's evil. Malice is evil. Okay? So, there is such a thing as malice and revenge. Frodo's thinking, revenge for what? What did I do?
You have his ring.
Well, it has everything to do. Give me the ring, Gandalf says, for a moment. Why is it important that he adds on that time qualifier?
Because
for a moment.
Frodo doesn't freak.
left it with
Okay,
him,
possibly so Frodo doesn't freak.
so it wouldn't just here, take it.
Because give me the ring can't mean what?
I'm going to have possession over
Give
him.
me the ring. That's possession. Okay?
Because you don't have to put it on. You just...
Nope. He says, pull it out. Look, Frodo, look at it. And so he looks at it, and there's nothing there. It's just a smooth, solid gold ring. And he throws it in the fire. Frodo's, oh! He reaches in with tongs, because he's not a fool, and he pulls it back out of the fire, and he says, take it. Oh, it's cool now. Believe me. And Frodo does. And now he holds it up and he sees that script written there. Elvish script, that is, it's the writing of the elves, but it's in the language of Mordor. And we're going to hear that language of Mordor in the Council of Elrond, if we ever get there. It's 2 lines. One ring to rule them all, one ring to find them, one ring to bring them all, and in the darkness bind them. And then he quotes the entire poem that it goes to. Okay? It's it, Frodo. You win. You've got Satan's ring. Because Satan would be the closest thing in our kind of world mythology that would equate to the enemy. I mean, think about it. If you heard rumors that Satan was rebuilding hell somewhere on earth, and you thought it was real. For me today, Nashville, any big city, except for London or, okay? That would do what? I'm going that way. If it's that way, Frodo, how on earth did it come to me? Good question. So he talks about the ring, etc. And Frodo says, page 51, as I bet anybody in this room would say, I wish it need not have happened in my time. Well, no, Sherlock. Who doesn't? I bet when George Bush was reading My Pet Goat to those kindergartners on September 11th, 2001, and Andy Card went in and stepped up to him and whispered in his ear, Mr. President, we are under attack. I bet the first thing that went into his mind was, damn Clinton, why wasn't this a year ago? Who wants to have that happen on his or her watch? Gandalf. So do I, Frodo. Really? And so do all who live to see such times. In other words, you're in good company. But that is not for them to decide. What's that mean? That's not for them to decide.
It's fate.
Okay, it's fate.
It's preordained. It was going to happen.
It's not necessarily. He doesn't go that far.
We don't have a choice in the matter.
Bingo! It did! 3 words. Tolkien doesn't use this. This is what somebody today might say. Deal with it. Right? What's this really the answer to? It's not really the answer, but it's kind of implied. The problem of bad things happening to good people. They do. Deal with it. Put on your big boy shorts and, move on. But that is not for them to decide. So what is?
How they choose to go about it.
How all we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given us. Bingo. So George Bush, sitting there, those kindergartners, had to immediately think, what do I do? Do I immediately get up and leave? Because that would do what?
Scare or
It would
confuse them.
scare a bunch of 5-year-olds. And he did. He finished reading the book. And when that was done, he got up and left, got on Air Force One, and flew around for 12 hours because the Pentagon wouldn't let him land. President of the United States, Supreme, Commander-in-Chief, he couldn't land for several hours. It wasn't 12, but it was several. Okay? We've got to decide what to do with the time that we have. What's he mean? Okay, so we know what we have. We know who wants it. Time to make a decision. What are some options?
Do nothing.
Do nothing? Oh, don't get me started. We won't finish this chapter. What else?
Run away with
You have
it.
to make a plan.
Run away?
You have to make a plan of action
Plan of action to do what?
to decide what you want to do.
Destroy
Do you
it.
want to do something with it, or do you want to be passive about it?
Okay? Destroy it.
Give us some tries.
Give it back to them. Say,
Take this game.
we're sorry. Be nice to us.
Here, Satan.
Take your trident, you know. And already, Frodo, our time is beginning to look black. Meaning,
Time is short.
time is short, clouds are coming. We don't have
Satan's
much
here.
hope. Doesn't look good. Imagine 9/11 for a moment, and not just 4 planes. Imagine 9/11 in 40 planes. And the Capitol, and the White House, and
With guns.
Supreme Court,
Every major national area.
in San Francisco, in Chicago, the Sears Tower, in Houston, in Miami.
National.
Okay? Yeah, maybe they don't like country music. But imagine LA. Imagine hitting those areas.
Knock out all the major international airports.
Yeah, I'd knock out major international. What else would it do?
Chaos.
Chaos. What would it do up here?
It'd mess you up.
Wouldn't it force progress?
How?
We would have to rebuild. We would become stronger.
No, it would be chaotic for.
What about the people who were killed? What about the relatives of the people who were killed? What about
What about
the
the
national consciousness? It would be shattering.
Wouldn't it do exactly what it did in the 8 hours following 9/11?
I mean,
Which was that everyone was in the hour or two following the tower getting hit. Everyone was freaking out because any plane that had just taken off from any major airport could have flown into any major.
Yeah, yeah. But imagine the effect
Of an action.
of 9/11 multiplied times 10.
Would have been actual.
You wouldn't have had planes grounded for 4 days.
Minimum months.
It would have been.
Okay.
never flown again.
But then the effect on the national psyche, because it took a while for the national psyche to kind of rouse up. You hit that many targets, and there's been a lot of question. Would the national psyche have gotten back up off the floor? Or would the national psyche have been turn the Middle East to a glass factory?
Back then,
Okay,
it probably.
because
would
it
have been
probably would have been that. Overkill? Sure.
that, but it would have
Okay.
gotten the job done. for
So this is what, Gandalf's kind of saying. We've got to decide what we're going to do here. Enemy lacks one thing.
in your food.
He needs one thing. Oh, and you're wearing it around your neck. Okay? So, he goes on and talks about the ring. Frodo finally, how do you know some of this? And Gandalf tells him a story. Who's the story of?
Smeagol and Digby.
Smeagol and his friend Diagal. And they're out fishing one day, and Diagal finds a ring in the river, and Smeagol throttles him for it. It's his birthday present. It's a nice way to get birthday presents, And Gandalf tells him, oh, by the way, that's Gollum. How loathsome. Page 54. I think it is a sad story. It might have happened to others, even some hobbits that I have known. Gollum wasn't a hobbit, Frodo says. Why? Why does he say that?
Because he's completely everything that a hobbit isn't. He's dark, he's dirty, he isn't happy or cheerful like hobbits are.
He could swim.
He just doesn't
Okay,
want
he
to be
lived under a
associated-
mountain for 600 years.
He doesn't want hobbits associated with them.
Why?
He doesn't feel like he's one of their kind anymore.
How would you feel if you found out an uncle of yours was a mass murderer?
Cast him out.
He's removed from the family, he's exiled.
What does Thor say about Loki when, the guy in the one Avengers says, your brother, he's adopted. Adoption agencies went berserk about that, right? What do we try to do
Distance
with
ourselves.
distant relatives who maybe were kind of shady? We distance ourselves even more. Oh no, my family was never slave owners. No. Those were indentured servants, and we freed them after the Civil War. Okay? Why? Because we don't want to think what?
The worst of our own family.
Keep going.
Or like weird.
That can be me. So what do we hear about Hitler? Oh, he was crazy. What do we hear about Stalin? Oh, he was crazy. What do we hear about Mao? Oh, he was crazy. Yeah, what if they weren't?
They look dogs.
What if they weren't crazy?
Then we could be them too.
Bingo. That's what Frodo finds disgusting. A good, truth-loving, all-American hobbit would not, do this, so to speak. Okay? So, they keep talking. Frodo, Gandalf explains how the ring left Gollum. And he says, bottom of 55, there was more than one power at work, Frodo. The ring was trying to get back to its master. That's one power, right? The ring was trying, so the ring has will,
Sentience.
some kind of sentience.
Some
Okay.
desires.
Sauron's out there going, ring, calling, willing for it to come back. Top of the next page, 56. But there was something else at work. Behind that, there was something else at work beyond any design of the ringmaker. Nope. Nope.
Was meant to
I
find.
can put it no plainer than by saying that Bilbo was
Meant to find.
meant to find the ring. If Bilbo was meant to find the ring, meant is one of those verbs. It requires an agent. It requires a
Higher power.
meaner. One who means. One who meant. So, what meant, / who, meant Bilbo to find the ring?
The
It's
ring.
never explained. Is it the ring? Did the ring mean for Bilbo to find the ring? The ring means for Bilbo to take the ring back to Sauron. Bilbo doesn't do that. That's not what Gandalf is saying here. And not by its maker. In which case, you also were meant to have it. Tolkien never comes out specifically and says, Iluvatar, which is the god of his whole cosmology, is the one behind this. Okay? But you have to take this passage with something Elrond is going to say in that chapter, and it's pretty clear they're talking about, at the very least, if not this, then the very Christian / Catholic notion of providence. Okay? Tolkien is a card-carrying, weekly Mass-attending Catholic. He would stop for Mass, leaving his house, walking into Oxford. He would stop for Mass almost every day, or several times a week at least. I mean, he, lock, stock, and barrel, believed it, all right? This is central to his belief system. It's part and parcel. Don't have time for all this. Guy named Boethius, 6th century, wrote a book called, I used to require this in here, Consolation of Philosophy.
How long is it?
It's not very long, 140 pages. It doesn't mean reading Aristotle and Socrates and Plato are going to make you feel better. The consolation of philosophy was this. Boethius was a Roman senator, 5th century, late 5th century, early 6th century, who was good friends with the German Roman emperor. He was Germanic, a guy named Theodoric. He was good friends with him. Somebody accused Boethius of plotting against the emperor, so the emperor had to throw him in prison. I mean, you plot against the emperor, and that's what happens. Capital charge, that is, he was going to be executed. So, Boethius, a Christian, gets thrown in prison, and he sits there and he wonders, why me? I haven't done anything wrong. Why me? And, as he puts it in his little book, the goddess philosophy comes to him. Why? To console him, to bring him comfort. He's still going to die, but he's going to die happier than he would have. Okay? And here's the comfort she brings him. Everything that happens according to God's plan. It's Romans, the book of Romans in the New Testament. Okay? But she does it in this way, or Boethius does it in this way. We experience life like this. It's a line. We're born, we have our first birthday, second, and then whenever we die, it's somewhere on this continuum, right? Okay? And we could take this continuum and say, extrapolate, creation, end. End of time. And, that's my lifetime. Metaphorically, okay? How do I experience time? Like I'm right now. Step by step, moment by moment. Okay? How do I see time? How do I see my life?
When you grow older, when you see people around you grow older.
Okay, how else? Do I understand everything that's happening to me?
No.
Hell no. Does it all make sense? No. How many of you have your life totally mapped out? And so far, it's been perfect. You've never taken a wrong turn.
If you raise your hand, you're lying.
And if you raise your hand, yeah, you're lying. Okay? None of us do. Why? Because I step here, and what happens? Whole bunch of possibilities. I step here, and all those possibilities that I just had before me, they're all gone. Right? Because now there's a whole bunch more possibilities. But I can't go back and have those possibilities back. You pull the trigger, it's not like Warner Brothers cartoons. That bullet's not going to go, right? So, she explained to Boethius, this is how your life is, buddy. And you're about to die. He's like, that doesn't console me. Come on, So she says, okay, so let's look at all the little events of your life. And he's like, yeah, because he's looking at them down here. What do they look like? A line with a bunch of squiggly lines. It still doesn't make any sense. Let's get a ladder. Let's take a ladder and let's look at it from up here. Now what can you start to see? What do you get? You get perspective. Now you're looking down. Let's get a bigger ladder. Her point is, up here, that's not mine. You have an all-seeing eye, like the eye with all the bills. And what does the all-seeing eye see?
Everything.
All of time is what to God?
Nothing.
No, it's not nothing.
One number.
Bingo. It's all now. What C.S. Lewis refers to as the eternal present. It's all now. So that when the writers of Scripture say, before the foundations of the world, Paul said, before the foundations of the world, Christ was crucified. Why? Because from God's perspective, that's all now. From our perspective, because I wasn't around when the world was created, so it was before me, so it was before my foundations in the world. And to this, this is me now. These are all little things. Well, from this perspective, what?
It's all one moment.
It's all one moment, but it all makes sense. This is the explanation for predestination. It's not God up here, deck of cards going, okay, you lose. Win, and let's see, I used to be Calvinist, so the rest of your damn go down. That's how, some Calvinism. Boethius' point is, This idea of providence, says everything, all these seemingly swirly lines in our lives, they all make sense. I could bring in a sweater that has a pattern on one side and turn it inside out, and the inside out side looks just like a bunch of loose threads. It doesn't make any sense. That's life as we live it. The pattern is what it looks like from above. Okay? So, that is the idea that Tolkien is drawing on, this Boethian notion, okay, that you are meant to have the ring. Notice, though, how does Frodo take that? Doesn't do me any good. It's not when Gandalf says, that should be encouraging. It should be encouraging that somebody means for you to have Satan's ring.
That sucks.
Okay? So, he says, how do you know? Fire rating. The ring says, I'm the ring. Okay? So they go on and they talk about Gollum some more. Page 59. And what does Gandalf tell him? What has Gollum done?
Escape.
Gollum is alive.
Keep going.
Left the mountains, got captured by the elves, escaped the elves.
Tortured by Sauron.
Told Satan what?
Where he is.
Baggins.
Baggins. Shire. Get him.
Ring.
Ring. Precious. That's it. Page 59. Through him, the enemy has learned that the one has been found again. He knows where Isildur fell. He knows where Gollum found his ring. He knows it's a great ring. He knows it's not one of the 3. He knows it's not one of the 7 or one of the 9. He probably even knows about the name of Baggins. This is terrible. Middle of 59. O Gandalf, best of friends, what am I to do? For now I am really afraid. What am I to do? Pity Bilbo did not stab that vile creature when he had a chance. This is going to become a central passage for the entire book. What a pity that Bilbo did not stab that vile creature when he had a chance. What does Frodo mean by pity? Damn him.
Mercy.
Yeah, that's not what he means.
But that's what he should. That's what Gandalf gets to.
That's what Gandalf's going to get to.
It's a shame.
Frodo means it was a shame. He should have killed him when he had the opportunity. If you're familiar with The Hobbit, did Frodo need to kill Gollum? No. He obviously escaped without killing him. Pity, Gandalf replies. It was pity that stayed his hand. Why did Frodo... What is pity?
Feeling bad.
Okay, feeling bad for someone. Right? For someone. Empathy. M together, path, feel. Feeling together. It's not feeling together, it's, bearing someone else's burden kind of a thing. Okay? Understanding somebody else's. So, Bilbo looked at Gollum and felt pity. Why? What did Gollum do, for those of you who've read The Hobbit? What did Gollum want to do when Bilbo showed up?
You wanted to eat Bilbo.
Well, before that. Riddles! He wanted to have a riddle game, a riddle contest. That's why Bilbo partly felt pity. What's the riddle contest, by the way, shows what? There's some kind of connection between there. Okay? So, pity, it was pity that stayed his hand. Pity and mercy. What's mercy? Not the same as pity.
It's showing leniency when most people wouldn't.
You're 90% there.
Not giving someone what they deserve.
Not giving someone what they deserve. It's when someone is in your power, you cut them slack. When someone is deserving judgment, you don't judge. Pity and mercy. Notice what Gandalf says, not to strike without need. You can feel pity when you drive down the street or walk down the street and you see some homeless guy asking for money.
It's mercy when you give him money.
Mercy when you give them money or stop and get them a meal. Why? Because they're in your power in that sense. You have the power to do something. Is it going to end world hunger? Nope, it's going to end world hunger for that person for that day, maybe. All right? So, he has been well rewarded, Frodo. He has been well rewarded, Frodo. Be sure that he took so little hurt from the evil and escaped in the end because he began his ownership of the ring so, with pity. That's why Bilbo was not overcome, Gandalf tells us. Sorry. I'm frightened, and I don't feel any pity for Gollum. Well, Frodo's being honest. Notice, he doesn't feel pity. Why? Because she is scared, you-know-whatless. What's he just heard?
Big guy knows where he is.
Sauron may know where I am, and I have his presence. You have not seen him. No, I don't want to. Why doesn't he want to?
Because
He'll probably feel pity.
He doesn't want to feel pity. What does Frodo want? He wants to stay angry at him, right? It's a lot easier to stay angry at somebody than it is to feel pity for them. I can't understand you. Wait, hold on. You mean to tell me, you and the elves, you've let him live after all these horrible deeds? All what horrible deeds? Let's list them. Okay, he killed his friend. But that's 600 years ago, Statute of limitations. That's passed by now. So what other horrible things? He ratted me out. Snitches get stitches. Okay, so. What other horrible things? Okay, he robbed his people. They kicked him out and they made him live under a mountain. There's not a lot. Specifically. You let him live. What does that imply?
That they
And they had it in their power to kill him and they didn't.
Yeah, that they have the right to life and death. Now, at any rate, he is as bad as an orc and just an enemy. As bad as an orc. We don't have any orc-like things in our world. We have nothing that corresponds.
I've seen some pretty scary people in Walmart.
I don't care how scary the person is. I don't care how many people they might have murdered. Orcs are inherently now evil. Even the worst rapist in the world was not born that way. Okay? Even the worst murderer in the world. Hitler wasn't born with thoughts of gas chambers. If he'd just been accepted into the damn Austrian art school, probably none of that would have happened.
Could have had better coping skills, though.
So, what did Frodo just say? He's as bad as an orc, that is, he's inherently evil and just an enemy. Why did he call him just an enemy? Why the just part?
Like to insinuate there's no way he can be a benefit.
Bingo. There's nothing. You look at Gollum, enemy. Well, what do you do with enemies?
Kill.
Boom.
He's
That's it.
simplifying it to make it better.
Enemies are what? They're not opponents. This is where our politics has gone completely off the rails. We think of our political opponents as enemies. Enemies you kill. Enemies are enemies of war. Opponents, people you disagree with. You don't kill them.
But you still respect them.
You can respect them. I can't some, but you can agree to disagree at least. I've got colleagues in the department, probably one of my best friends. I'm far right wing. He's a Marxist. And we agree on nothing politically. We agree on an awful lot when it comes to what happens at a university and stuff. Okay? Gandalf. Because how does Frodo finish that little thing? He deserves death. Deserves it? I dare say he does. Many that live deserve death. Wow. Wow.
Yeah, so when Gandalf he tries to basically push away Gollum because he's telling Frodo that he's such a bad person, he's an enemy, right? So is he saying that out of like self-loathing for Gollum because of his experiences in the past, or is he saying that to
Is who saying that?
Gandalf?
No, Gandalf doesn't have any self-loathing or self-loathing of anything, or even that of Gollum.
Why is he pushing him away so much from Frodo?
He's not. If anything, he's trying to do the opposite. He's trying to draw Frodo closer to understanding Gollum. Frodo's the one who's pushing away. Frodo doesn't want to have anything to do with Gollum. So when Frodo says he deserves death, and Gandalf replies, many that live deserve death. I mean, rapist.
Some that dies.
Can you deliver it?
Yeah, because how does he follow?
Can you give it to them?
Some that die deserve life. You know, there have been an awful lot of cases over about the last 20, 30 years of capital punishment cases where people went to the chair or went to the injection,
And they're
and then later on,
not guilty.
DNA evidence pretty conclusively cleared, oops, wrong guy, like over 100. And there have been just as many cases of people who've gone to prison for rape, for murder, for other things, and DNA evidence is proved, gone to prison, DNA evidence is proved after 20, 30, 40, I think one guy, 60 years, a couple of years ago, came out, wasn't the right guy, and they were released. But their lives are gone. Some that die deserve life. Can you give it to them? Now, I don't know that Tolkien is doing this, but I think Tolkien is making a pretty good case against capital punishment here. Because what if you are wrong? You can't go, oops, bring in the crash cart, 2 years later. Can you give it to them? Then do not be too eager to deal out death in judgment. Notice, bunch of little qualifiers. Don't be too eager. He doesn't say don't deal out death in judgment. Don't be eager to. Why? Eagerness implies a rush. What's Frodo just said? I haven't even seen Gollum. I want him dead. I want his head on my wall, For even the very wise cannot see all ends. What does he mean? All ends.
Like all the possibilities, all the chances.
Okay, yeah, we're going to get to that in a minute. Here's what he means. I have not much hope that Gollum can be cured before he dies, but there is a chance of it. What?
He already knows that Gollum's going to die, doesn't he?
Where he's going to die?
But I mean, does he know specifically that?
No, he doesn't know specifically. Gandalf is not clairvoyant. He's not a quote-unquote prophet. He doesn't see the future. He experiences it like we do. He's got a little ace in the hole that we don't have.
He's one of these two.
Because he's an angelic-like being. He's one of the Maya. He's an angel, for lack of a better phrase. Okay? So what does he mean? I have not much hope that Gollum can be cured before he dies, but there is a chance of it. That's what he means with the cannot see all ends. Notice what Gandalf is saying he wants. He wants Gollum to be cured. What does it mean to be cured? What do you do when you cure ham or cure a meat?
Cleansed.
It's not cleansed.
At least
Forgiven.
He wants.
Preserve it.
I mean, bingo. You preserve it. Or it is another word that's used for it. It's saved. A cured ham is a ham that is saved for a long time. You can eat it years later. It's because of all the salt content in it, okay?
So when would you say preserved? Would you mean like whatever is left of his, in this term, soul or whatever, because they can't get rid of what has been done? Is that what you're saying?
Well, cured. What's another term for cure?
Purge.
Solved.
Solved? Come on, guys. You're sick. You want a cure. You have cancer. You want a cure. What? You want to be healed. Okay? You want to be healed. Harry Potter loses all the bones in his arms. He wants a cure for that. He wants to be healed. He wants to be whole again. All of those meanings are embedded in that cure. To be healed, to be whole, to be saved, to be preserved. What does Gandalf want for Gollum?
The ring's effects to not have control over him.
He wants the ring's effects to be gone. He wants Gollum to be what? What he was before he saw the ring.
A murderer.
Before. He wasn't a murderer before.
A hobbit.
It was the ring that created the temptation. Right? He wants him to be what he is supposed to be. If you read the essay on fairy stories, that's recovery. He wants him to be what he should be. A good little hobbit. Okay? Why? It's one stupid being out of the whole world of beings. It gets at Gandalf's task. Gandalf is going to tell us later in the third book. He's a steward. Just like Denethor is a steward. Well, what is a steward? A steward is a person who rules in place of somebody else because the other person is gone. So I'm kind of in charge while so-and-so's gone. You know, president leaves for a while, or the president becomes mentally incapacitated. The vice president takes over. The vice president is a steward. Does the vice president get that permanently? Not necessarily. If the president's damage is permanent, then yes. Okay? So, he is bound up with the fate of the ring. My heart tells me he has some part to play, for good or ill, before the end. And when that comes, Bilbo's pity may rule the fate of many, yours not least. Okay? So go back to the ends. Have you heard the phrase ends and means? Or the ends don't justify the means? What does ends mean in that phrase?
How you get there.
No, that's the means.
Yeah.
It's the outcome. It's the conclusion. It's the completion, the perfection of the whatever the idea is. You know, ends and means. Ends, you want an A in the class. Means, you can cheat. Or try. Not necessarily the best way, but you could try. Okay. Well, ends, to learn something. Means, try. You know, my son has started MTSU this fall as a sophomore. You know, he's got to take intro to philosophy. He's like, and I'm like, you know, you get out of it what you put into it. Yeah, I understand the professor could be boring, blah, 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 blah. But if you try a little, you might, okay. So what does he mean? We cannot see all ends, all purposes, all conclusions. But what's he say? My heart. His heart isn't his reason, right? What's he mean, his heart? My gut's telling me. Could be. Gollum's got something to do before the end of all this business is over, and we can just jump from there to...
He has a part to play.
Yeah, we can jump from there to Mount Doom.
Yep.
Or, excuse me, the stairs of... What is it? Samoth now, or just about... No, it's Mount Doom. So we can just skip all that. Because all this is just to get us to that point. Okay? So... What's Frodo's response to all this? It's kind of like some of your reactions I'm seeing. Yeah, get on with it.
Even if Bilbo didn't kill Gollum, I wish he never found it.
And?
Why
didn't you make me throw it away or destroy it? Aren't you listening?
It's Satan's ring.
And? Try!
Make you
Break it.
Come on. Throw it in your puny little fire. Heat it up. Get a big old hammer. like they do in the stupid movie with the chapter of the Council of Elrond. They have the dwarves bring out their mallets and hammers, and they try to break the ring. And it, bing, bing, doesn't do any good. Okay? So, he says there is one way to get rid of it. Got to throw it in the mountain. Got to destroy it. And Frodo says, middle of 61. And then we're going to zoom. I do really wish to destroy it. Notice that sentence. What kind of voice does it have? Passive voice, active voice?
Aggressive.
It's active, man. Who's doing the action?
He is.
I. And notice, really wish to destroy it. And then what does Frodo immediately notice?
Or will they have it destroyed?
Whoa. No, not me. Not me personally. Or, well, to have it destroyed, and he goes from extremely active to totally passive. No, I want you back there. You destroy the ring. Come up and take it from me, because I can't even give it to you. No, somebody else. I wish I'd never seen the ring. Why did it come to me? Why was I chosen? With 2 words. Does everybody ask when
Why me?
Yeah, exactly. Why me? Why me? Sometimes it's when really bad stuff happens to everyone around them, but not them. There's a house over on Wilkinson Pike. When the Good Friday tornado came through, that house stayed. Every other house on that road, gone. I can't imagine being the people, because I'd be sitting there going, why? Or people who don't get on a plane, and then that plane crashes, and they wonder, why? Okay? Why me? Notice Gandalf's response. And I think this is also, because Tolkien, had 4 kids and probably answered this question a hell of a lot. Such questions cannot be answered. Shut up, Christopher. Eat your peas and go on. You may be sure it's not for any merit that others do not possess. In other words, Frodo, there's nothing about you that other people don't have in spades. Let's see. It's not for power or wisdom at any rate, right? I mean, he's kind of demonstrated. Wisdom factor, he's not so hot. But you have been, there it is again, chosen. Somebody, if he's chosen, there had to be a chooser. And you must therefore use what? So it's not wisdom, it's not power, strength, heart, and wits. Strength is physical strength. Heart is what? Courage, guts. Wits, what little brain you have. So, how much strength does, go ahead.
I was just going to, you can go ahead. I was just going to get to it.
How much strength does a hobbit have?
Barely.
Is he Arnold in his prime?
No.
No, he's Arnold in 10 years. Not much. Heart?
Oh, that's not
That's up to see, I guess.
We don't know yet. Could have a lot of heart.
He had someone say his first statement, but he didn't second.
Yeah. Wits? He's not showing that he's so hot in the wits category.
He answers that in the next one.
But I have so little of any of these things. Oh, golly gee, Mr. Gandalf, I'm just not of the brightest bulb in the... You are wise and powerful. Will you not take the ring? Now that's pulling the rug out from under him. What's he just done?
He's offered him to take the ring.
He's turned the tables. He's offered Gandalf the ring. No, and Gandalf springs to his feet. Does that mean he goes merely from a sitting position to standing up?
No, he went backs away. Like
Bingo!
He recoils.
He jumps away from. Why?
Because the Maya should not.
Because
have
Gandalf is so
power.
powerful, he does.
What's really happening here?
Gandalf's probably scared that he thinks the ring is going to think that it's his now or something
You that was a 98 out of
He's
100.
afraid of
answer.
what he's going to do with the ring.
Close. Yes.
He doesn't want to interfere with destiny.
He doesn't want
He
to.
doesn't want to interfere with destiny.
Doesn't want to interfere with destiny.
No, because he doesn't want to become like
Gandalf's
Sauron
pretty
himself.
powerful with the ring in his power.
I think part of what's going on here is Gandalf was perceiving something. Was that really Frodo that just said that?
No.
Or was that the ring attempting to
Tempt him.
bingo? No. With that power, I should have power, what? Too great and terrible? That flies in the face of Western history. Western history of humanity. I can't speak of Eastern countries or African nations or China, Oriental. The history of Western humanity. When somebody discovered quote unquote power, it was, oh yeah, more and more. You can make a 1 megaton bomb. Well, I can make a 2 megaton. I can make a 100 megaton. I can make a. Go ahead.
I was going to say, you kind of see a similar thing in the Bible and Scripture and the story of Babel, because God Himself says that you have enough power to do all things. Man would become so powerful they could do all things, and He doesn't describe that as a good thing.
No, he says and go back even to the garden. They've eaten of the knowledge of good and evil. Now, if they eat of the other tree, they will be immortal.
As of like God.
Okay, and they will be as we are, etc. So, chop them down a little bit. So, I will have power still greater and more deadly. That is, what's he already telling us about his power? He has great power, and he has deadly power. Okay? I saw the flyer on the electronic monsters in all the hallways. The Iron Giant is going to be shown. If you've never seen the Iron Giant, you need to go to that. Okay? Because the Iron Giant's this really cool giant, and then they find out he's what? He's a gun. And when he goes crazy, he's a massive gun. This is kind of like the Iron Giant on steroids. Yeah. I usually make reference to that later, either here or with Harry Potter. Okay? So, do not tempt me. I do not wish to become like the Dark Lord himself. The way of the ring to my heart is by pity. Pity for weakness and the desire of strength to do good. In other words, it'll give me greater strength. I want to do good. There's the desire to do good, and the ring can help me do that. But it will be what? The wrong means to an end. Oh, should I ask this question? I don't think I've ever asked this question before. It's a dangerous one. Were there any good ends, that is purposes, the purpose for the things that some of the Nazi doctors were attempting on their various patients, whether Jews, homosexuals, whatever, gypsies?
Yeah, I think they were perceived good intentions.
What were some of those intentions? I mean, it wasn't all just about the master race.
No, it was they were
The cleansing of disease.
Cleansing of disease. They wanted to try to figure out how we can make people, for example, bear cold weather easier.
super strong.
So, things like that. Some of those are good.
To cure the human weakness.
Okay, so what about their means?
Well, the
It was
means
completely unethical.
The means were completely unethical. So the science destroyed.
Science fiction.
It wasn't science fiction.
I mean, the science wasn't completely destroyed, because a lot of Nazi science helped the United States after the war.
Yeah, not medical science, though.
Yeah.
Physical science definitely did. Werner von Braun, for example. Okay? Yeah, you're right, though. I don't believe the science was destroyed. I think
I
it
don't
was
think the
stored.
medical science was completely
I
destroyed.
think some of it was stored. But, okay, so we say that. Are there experiments that are done today that have good ends and maybe questionable means? I'll let you decide which ones, okay?
I don't think that was a dangerous question, by the way. I think it was justifiable for the situation.
So, Gandalf says, the wish to wield it would be too great. I shall have such need of it. Okay? So, Frodo says, I've got to leave. Sam is outed as an eavesdropper. Gandalf makes him go. We're going to skip the next couple chapters. Because Three's company, so we find out, who's going. The conspiracy is unmasked. We find out everybody's, been talking about Frodo essentially behind his back. So Merry and Pippin know. Merry and Pippin know about the ring already. So Frodo sells his house. He's going to go off and live in Buckleberry, seemingly. And he goes there. They run into Farmer Maggot, all that kind of stuff. We're going to skip all that. And Merry suggests they take a shortcut. Yes?
How big are the dogs? Are they like
Farmer
actually-
Maggots, they're described, aren't they?
As wolfish, but for a hobbit, it's
I thought they were
a
probably like
husky.
mastiffs.
Okay,
So,
big, still.
yeah, because, there are some mastiffs that stand pretty tall. Okay? So they take the shortcut through the old forest. And as we all find out about shortcuts, it's not a shortcut. And a couple of them get captured by Old Man Willow. A willow tree eats them. Who rescues them?
Tom Bombadil.
Okay? So let's skip the rest of that and go into the house of Tom Bombadil. So they go in, it's Goldberry's washing day, in the house of Tom Bombadil. I want to pick up on page 131. Now, one of the big questions about Lord of the Rings. Who is Tom Bombadil? What is Tom Bombadil?
He's an enigma.
He's one of the old, what are the old people?
The Maya.
Is he the same thing as Gandalf?
No, well, it's never stated that he's a Maya. Not even in the Silmarillion or in the 12-volume History of Middle-earth. Doesn't say. Tom Bombadil actually exists outside the Lord of the Rings. So when Tolkien was writing this, he'd already written The Adventures of Tom Bombadil. When Tolkien was writing this, he's got kind of Tom Bombadil on his mind, and he just kind of drops him in. In some of his letters, Tolkien refers to Bombadil as a kind of a spirit of pacifism. So he's a good card-carrying pacifist. He's not going to do anything bad, etc., etc. I think there's more to him than that. Bear in mind, Tolkien said in the introduction, an author doesn't control everything about his or her work. That is, they don't understand and know everything about what's going on. Okay? Contra J.K. Rowling, who tries, I wish she would just shut up, who tries to control everything about the whole Potter world. Okay? Adding stuff to characters that doesn't fit with the characters as described in the novels, etc. What do I mean by all that? Well, look at page 131. So the hobbits are in Tom's house, and Tom's telling them stories/history. Okay? Top of that page. When they caught his words again, they found that he had now wandered into strange regions beyond their memory and beyond their waking thought, into times when the world was wider and the seas flowed straight to the western shore. That is, when the world was flat. Middle Earth was over here. It was called Lothlórien at the time. You had the ocean. You had the name of the island, Westernessa, out here. In our mythology, an island that sinks. Atlantis. Okay. And then over here, you have the west, Valinor, which is where the gods dwell. And you could get there, but from a boat leaving here, you could go all the way across. Okay? You got to read the Silmarillion to find out why it's no longer that way. So, Tom's telling them, and his memory goes back into all this. And still on and back Tom went, singing out into ancient starlight when only the elf sires were awake. That is, before the first humans and before the first dwarves were awakened. Okay? One of these elf sires, by the way, if I remember correctly, I know somebody from YouTube's going to go, you're wrong about that. Galadriel. She's really old. Okay? So, then suddenly he stops, and they think maybe he's fallen asleep. There sat before him enchanted. And it seemed as if under the spell of his words, the wind had gone, clouds had dried up, that it had been withdrawn, etc., etc. And Frodo's kind of like, who are you? Eh? What? Don't you know my name yet? That's the only answer. Tell me, who are you? Alone, yourself, nameless. Tom's answer is, who are you? Alone, yourself, nameless. Why does he fill alone, yourself, nameless after you?
Because his story hasn't been written yet.
I think Tom is saying, I am myself, alone, lost my place, myself, nameless. Where do we get a name from?
Our parents.
Somebody else. Our parents usually, maybe not. Somebody else. Okay? Where do we come from? Our parents.
Alone.
Whether you know them or not. Who are you alone? Now, I don't think Tom means, who are you when you go off to a room by yourself? Because there's nobody else in the room, right? Do you suddenly change? Do you metaphysically become different? That's not what he means. He means, who are you totally alone? Independent from anybody else. You're not. You're not. None of us is. Why? Look at that word that I used. Independent. What's the N part mean?
Not.
Not. What's the D part mean? From pendant. Hanging. Like depending on. We are all dependent. How so? I don't make my own electricity. I don't make my own clothes. I don't have a well dug for my own water. I don't kill my own food. None of us do all of this. We are all dependent on others. Tom is implying, I think, I could be wrong. I've been reading this for 30 years. I still haven't figured it out. 40 years. Tom is alone. He is himself. And he is nameless.
He is nothing but yet.
But you are young and I am old. Well, how old is he?
Doesn't say.
He says eldest.
So he might be the oldest.
Eldest. That's what I am. Somebody else later on in the story is going to say, I'm the eldest. Treebeard. Treebeard's going to say, I'm the oldest. Okay? Really? Mark my words, my friends. And Tom gives us a little information. Tom was here before the river and the trees. Now he's talking there about the Brandywine River and the trees of Tom's little area. Okay, so rivers change, right? Rivers dry up, new rivers form, several thousand years old. We're going to, Council of Elrond, we're going to find out Elrond's over 5,000 years old. So,
I also think he means like the first.
Well, yeah, where I'm going to get there. So, here before the river and the trees, Tom remembers the first raindrop and the first acorn. Well, those are both talked about in the Silmarillion. When that occurs in Arda, the world that is, what we call Earth. He made paths before the big people. Who are the big people? Elves and men. So, he was here before the first elves were awakened. And he saw the little people arriving. He was here before the kings and the graves and the Barrow-wights. What kings and graves and Barrow-wights? The ones they're going to run into in the next chapter. When the elves passed westward, when they were awakened here, when the elves were first made, They were made here. So there's all these unliving bodies lying on the ground. And they wake up. And they see the stars. And the gods kind of go, ooh, follow us. And they come over here to the land of the west. He says, I was here before they went over. What's he doing? He keeps going backwards. Tom was here already before the seas were bent. He knew the dark under the stars when it was fearless, before the Dark Lord came from outside. Well, when was that? Right after the creation story in the Silmarillion, we're told Morgoth, his real name is Melkor, he's the Satan character. Melkor leaves the presence of God, Iluvatar, and he goes down into the world that was made. Why? He wants to screw it up. Okay? Thomas just told us, I was here before he came. Because he's the one that brings the fear. He's the one that makes the dark fearsome. So what's Tom? I think Tom is some kind of epiphany, manifestation of the real Iluvatar. I could be wrong. Maybe he's like the spirit. Okay? Yes?
Well, I was going to say that when he says, I am eldest, that's what I am, it kind of reminds me of when Moses said, who are you? And God said to him, I am what I am.
I am who I am. And what that actually means, because it's not a really good translation, it's I am being. It's that the Hebrew word that's used there it's implying God's activity. It's I aming. I'm active. It's not I'm just sitting back on my throne watching things. It's I am motion. I am movement. In other words, don't wait, because I'm still working. Okay? So, other than that, I have no idea what Tom is. So we get Fog on the Barrow Downs when they do exactly what Tom told them not to do. He said, stay away from the stones. What do? They go to the stones. Accidentally. One thing in this chapter is really important. It's when Tom frees them from the Barrow-wight, and he pulls all the grave goods out of the barrow. Okay? Exposes them to the sunlight. But among the grave goods are some swords. And he gives them each a sword. And he tells them, page 146, they're knives, actually. Old knives are long enough as swords for Hobbit people. He told them that their blades were forged many long years ago by men of Western Essa. They were foes of the Dark Lord, but they were overcome by the evil king of Carn-Dûm in the land of Angmar. Okay, what that means is, these blades were forged to fight against the Witch King of Angmar. Okay? So when they were forged this way, they had spells woven in them. Not spells, but they might have writing on them. You know, runic writing or something. Okay? Why is this important?
Weathertop.
Nope. Much, much later. There's going to be a scene much, much later where one of these swords is going to do something pretty. Yeah, there is a scene in Weathertop. That's important too. But the other one is much later, and it's key, and it's completely wasted in the film. Just Peter Jackson doesn't get it at all. Okay, so let's go on. Sign of the Prancing Pony. What important happens there?
Gandalf doesn't show up.
Okay, Gandalf's still missing.
Frodo uses the ring.
How and why? Start with the why and then the how.
Because the innkeeper, I think, is talking to him like, hey, no, Strider's talking about how your friends should be quieter, and they're telling the stories about who Frodo is to everybody in the bar.
Pippin's, had a few, and tongue is loose. So what does Frodo do?
He tries to go stop him
He stands up on a table and starts to sing
to distract.
as a distraction, but
He slips
he
and falls, and the ring
slips
falls on his
and
hand.
he puts his finger in his pocket, and zoop, the ring goes on his finger, and he disappears. And he slinks back to a corner where this guy Strider is, and Strider calls him Mr. Baggins. He says, now you put your foot in it, or should I say finger, etc. So we find chapter 10, Strider. Describe Strider.
Awesome.
Awesome! Totally rad, dude.
It's like everything that Frodo is not.
Everything that Frodo's not. Is Frodo handsome?
No.
So is Strider ugly?
I mean,
Is Strider handsome?
Strider is Strider.
Strider is not Viggo Mortensen.
No,
He's
he's
big
not
now.
ugly.
Viggo Mortensen's too beautiful to be Strider. Viggo Mortensen doesn't look like he did in that film that he did about the horse ride across the Sahara. If he'd just done the horse ride across the Sahara, then he'd look like Strider. Where does Strider spend most of his days?
Out in the sun.
Out in the weather. Okay. So what else about him?
he's
He's a
probably
lot
the
older.
third.
Why is he called Strider?
He's a ranger.
His original name in Tolkien's manuscripts was Trotter. Just didn't work well. He's got long legs. Okay.
Very tall.
Tall.
He's part elf.
He's not part elf.
No, he's
Well, then what is he part
No, he's
of?
not human.
He's part something.
He is human.
Oh no, the Dunedain.
He's a Dunedain. He's a man of Westernessa. He's a ranger. Okay. He wears this long, muddy, stained, probably smelly cloak. Okay. So he says, and I will help you. And Sam's like, you're kind of dodgy there, buddy. So Barlaman brings in a letter in the chapter Strider, 167 and following. It's a letter from Gandalf. It says, make for Rivendell, look for my friend Strider. Oh, by the way, his real name's not Strider, it's Aragorn, and he has a little poem. Isn't that nice? Gandalf's feeling poetic. All that is gold does not glitter, not all those who wander are lost. The old that is strong does not wither, deep roots are not reached by the frost. We can skip the rest, because what did just those 4 lines tell us? All that is gold does not glitter.
Just because the ring looks good doesn't mean
It's not the ring that he's talking about.
No, just Aragorn.
He's talking about Strider.
He's probably the
He doesn't glitter.
He's dirty.
He's ugly. Or at the very least, he's foul.
But he's super important.
third most important character in the book.
He's super important. Okay? Well, the third volume is The Return of the King. The original title of the book, The War of the Ring. Who's the real Lord of the Ring? Sauron. Okay? Some could argue he's not the third most important character of the book. The whole book's ultimately about him getting his job. It's all designed so Strider can become king. Okay? So, Frodo says, why didn't you tell me? And Frodo says, page 171, I believed you were a friend before the letter came, or I wanted to. You frightened me a lot. But, I think one of Sauron's spies would, seem fairer and feel fouler. Strider laughs. Oh, I get it. So I look foul and feel fair. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Okay? So, we find out Mary's, running to Black Riders and stuff. So they all sleep together in one room in the night. The place they were going to stay in gets raided, and they make their way to Weathertop. What negative thing do we see at Bree?
The Nazgul.
The Nazgul. Okay, what else? What about the people?
They're
2 human men that seem suspicious that way.
Yeah, there are some bad guys. Name one. Bill Ferny. He's not totally bad. After all, what does he sell them?
A horse.
pony.
Bill.
Bill the pony. They're going to kind of redeem the name Bill, by naming it a pony. So they make for Weathertop, which is a mountain that once had a fortress on it. And as they make their way there, they get to Weathertop, and Sam sings, pages 191, Sam sings a little part of a lay about Gil-galad. Well, who's Gil-galad? Gil-galad was one of the people who helped fight off Sauron thousands of years ago. Okay? Actually, that's not 171. That's Sam singing that is 185. Okay? Gil-galad was an elven king, blah, 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 blah. So they're standing on the hilltop after Sam sings this, and Frodo says, look, and there's dark riders. So now they've got to get ready. Page 191. Mary says, tell us more of Gil-galad. It made my heart feel good. I felt better hearing this. Says, do you know more? He says, yeah. Frodo knows more too. And so Aragorn says, I'll tell you the tale of Lothlórien to Nuviel. Why? Why is she so important? Because she marries a man named Beren. Lothlórien comes from Thingol, an elf, and Melian, a Maya, an angelic being. Okay? So she's half elf, half goddess. She marries Beren, who's all man. Okay? And so he tells them this part of the story of Beren and Lothlórien, which is one of the great love stories in all of Tolkien. In fact, I would even say in all of Western literature. I mean, it ranks up there with Tristan and Isolde and Lancelot and Guinevere, etc. Little tidbit. Anybody know why else these are important for Tolkien study? Go to the cemetery, Wolvercote Cemetery, just outside Oxford, where Tolkien and his wife are buried. And on the tombstone, you have Edith Pratt Tolkien, Lothian, inscribed. John Ronald Reuel Tolkien, Beren. This is their story. Tolkien thought. Okay? So, they get attacked. Frodo puts on the ring. Why? Because they're telling him to put on the ring. And he fights back, stabs out with the knife that he got from, what's his name? Tom Bombadil. And says, oh, Elbereth Gilthoniel. Elbereth Gilthoniel is the queen of the gods. Okay?
Can you spell it?
Pardon?
Can you spell that, please?
It's on bottom of page 195. A lot of people say this is kind of like Hail Mary full of grace. Okay? This is Tolkien's Middle-earthized version of that. I don't know what phrase you'd use for it. Chapter 12, Flight to the Ford. They've got to get to the Ford of Bruinen, and Frodo has now been poisoned. Aragorn's kind of healing him. And Arwen, warrior princess, shows up. No, I'm getting strange looks like, what are you talking about? No, who shows up to help?
Elrond.
Glorfindel. Okay? Puts Frodo on his horse, speaks to the horse, horse rides. He gets to the fords. End of the first book, 214, 215. That is the first book of the first volume. We're only halfway there with 55 minutes to go. And Frodo rides across the ford and then turns his horse around. Okay? So he's facing the 9 riders as they're coming. And we're told he sits upright in the saddle, brandishes his sword, and says, go back. Go back to the land of Mordor. Follow me no more. This is page 214. Follow me no more. And they say, come back, to Mordor we will take you. He says, go back. The ring, and they start chanting. The leader goes into the water, followed by 2 others. By Elbereth and Lothlórien the Fair. Okay. So, Queen of the Gods, and kind of like the best elf woman who's ever lived. You shall have neither the ring nor me. And the leader, now halfway across the ford, stands up in his stirrups, raises his hand, and Frodo's sword does what? His tongue, he's stricken dumb, his tongue cleaves to his mouth, his sword breaks. This isn't looking so good. And then the water starts to rise up, and he sees flames of light coming from the other side. And he passes out. Book 2, he wakes up. They're at the house of Elrond, Elven in Rivendell. And I'm going to skip a bunch. Frodo finally understands 220, 221, a little bit more about Strider, that he's one of the people of the old kings. Thought he was only a ranger. We're going to hear about rangers, hopefully, in a moment. Gandalf explains some about that. And then Frodo asks, bottom of 222, just before the flood came and washed the riders away, Frodo says, Gandalf says, here in Rivendell, very bottom of that page, 222, there live still some of his, Sauron's, chief foes, the Elven-wise, lords of the Eldar from beyond the furthest seas. That is, remember Middle Earth was like this. Well, when the elves left here and went over here, they stayed here for a long time. This is called the Blessed Realm. Once an elf goes here, they kind of, when they come back here, they kind of live in both places simultaneously. Or another way of putting it is their existence here kind of has a seen and an unseen aspect to it. When they're over here, they're like you and I are now. When you're over here, they can appear like they would over here. But that's not like you and I now. That's like you and I now if we had shining all around us, an aura. Okay? So, that's why he says, they do not fear the ring race, for those who have dwelt in the blessed realm live at once in both worlds. And against both the seen and the unseen, they have great power. It's the only time Tolkien mentions the seen and the unseen. Well, who are the unseen? Who are some of the unseen, at least? The ring wraiths. How can we see the ring wraiths? The 9 kings who took rings from Sauron.
Only when Frodo puts on the ring.
No.
No.
The cloaks. By what they were. Okay? They give shape to them. So what happens when Frodo stabs the one? Or the flood knocks, they find the cloaks? It's kind of like Obi-Wan's Kenobi, cloak, lying down there on the ground. It's like, where'd he go? So, I thought I saw a white figure. Was that Glorfindel? You saw him for a moment as he is upon the other side, one of the mighty of the firstborn. Firstborn doesn't mean he's one of those who was first awakened. It means firstborn the elves. He's not somebody to mess around with. Okay?
It's the firstborn of the what again?
Elves. One of the firstborn of the elves. Okay? So, we're going to skip a bunch because we're going to get to that all-important chapter. He meets Bilbo. He's glad to hear Bilbo's still alive. And we get the Council of Elrond. All right? We find out who shows up, page 240. I'm not going to talk about them. But you have the names there of several people who show up. And then on 242, Elrond tells all these people and the others who show up, you've done well to come. You'll hear today all that you need in order to understand the purposes of the enemy. Nothing you can do other than to resist, with hope or without it. But you don't stand alone. The ring, what shall we do with the ring? The merest of trifles that Sauron desires. He says, that's the purpose for which you are called hither. Called, I say, though I have not called you to me. You have come and are here met. By chance, as it may seem, yet it is not so. Believe rather that it is so ordered that we who sit here and none others must now find counsel for the peril of the world. There's an awful lot of language in there that implies what? There is a meaner. There is a chooser. There is somebody who's kind of moving the chess pieces. Okay? So, Elrond's the first one to talk. Why? It's his house for one reason. What's another reason? Louder?
He's 5,000 years old.
He's the oldest one there. He's older than Gandalf. Gandalf shows up in Middle-earth after Elrond's already alive and kicking. Okay? So he talks about, when we marched on Sauron and we went up Mount Doom and Isildur cut his finger off, man, I remember it like it was, what? You remember? I thought it was a long time ago. And Elrond tells us, page 243, my memory reaches back even to the elder days. And he gives us some names. Eärendil was my sire. Okay, so who's Eärendil? We're gonna throw him in here because he's going to be important. Two little dots over the A, I think. Eärendil was my sire, who was born in Gondolin before its fall. My mother was Elwing, so Eärendil and Elwing, daughter of Dior, son of Beren and Luthien. So, mom and dad, grandpa, great-grandparents. That's a bit of a claim to fame, by the way. I mean, he's name-dropping here, okay? I've seen 3 ages in the west of the world. For example, they are now in the 3rd age, in the year 3018. When the ring was cut off Sauron's finger, that was in the 2nd age, in the year 3441. Pretty sure Elrond was around at the end of the 1st age. So that makes him over 6,449 years old. Okay? But he doesn't look a day over 500. So he tells them about what happened. He tells them Isildur took the ring. He should have destroyed it, but he didn't. Boromir speaks, talks about the dream that came to his brother and then to him. Page 246 with the little poem. Seek for the sword that was broken, etc., etc. He finishes, and Aragorn stands up. Notice, not Strider. He's called Aragorn. Why? You're not going to hear much about Strider anymore.
He's out of breed.
He's out of breed. Here, he's known by his real name. And Aragorn stands up, and he throws his broken sword on the table.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the blade that was broken. Boromir, who the hell are you? And who are you? And what have you to do with Minas Tirith? Okay, the very fact that he has the sword that was broken.
Should have let it on.
Yeah, Boromir knows. He may not know his actual name, but he knows who should be the person carrying that.
The king.
Okay, he should be a descendant of the person who broke the sword in the first place, Who defends him? Elrond does. If you've seen the films, what kind of relationship do Elrond and Aragorn have?
He's in a relationship with his father.
Not necessarily.
Kind of. It's really tortured in the film.
Estranged acquaintances.
Yeah, but not here.
Not here, no, in the movie.
In the film, it's tortured. Because, Elrond's like, oh, you're a man.
Here it's more of a father-son type thing, I will say.
It's even more than that. He is Louder?
He grew up in his house.
He grew up there. He is Aragorn, son of Arathorn. And he is descended through many fathers from Isildur, Elendil's son of Minas Ithil. Okay, he's just mentioned 2 previous kings of Gondor. Not any previous kings. You go to Gondor, and there's portraits of these guys everywhere. We're going to see, when they sail down the river, when they park at Park Galen, these 2 massive statues of these 2. He is the chief of the Dunedain in the north. Few are now left of that folk. Frodo, thank you, Jesus. Take the ring, it's yours. And he's like, sorry. Nice try. So Gandalf says, hold it up. And he holds it up. Look at the description we're given of Boromir. Now, whenever Tolkien uses the verb, or uses the adjective glinted to describe somebody's eyes, it's always evil. It's always evil. Boromir's eyes glinted as he gazed at the golden thing. Okay? So he says, oh, so that means the doom of Minas Tirith has come. Aragorn kind of schools him in how to interpret poetry. The words were not the doom of Minas Tirith. What were the words? Doom is near at hand. What is doom?
Destruction.
We think it's destruction. Judgment Day. Nope. Literally, it is judgment. It's not the final cataclysmic judgment. It comes from the verb to deem, to think something, to judge something. Okay? Whose doom is near at hand? Ah, that's the question. Okay? So, Aragorn says, so do you want me to come? You want me to come to Minas Tirith? You want me to bring the sword that was broken? Because it's not going to be broken anymore. We're going to fix it here. We're going to make it again. Better, stronger, etc., etc. Okay? And Boromir says, bottom of 247, I was not sent to beg any boon, but to seek only the meaning of a riddle. We are hard pressed. Hey, if the sword of Elendil could come, or Elendil, as it should be pronounced, that would be a help beyond our hope. Why? What's the sword of Elendil in our world?
Excalibur.
Excalibur. Imagine, just imagine for a moment, you get up in the morning and on all the news, all CNN and everything, Excalibur's been discovered. Real. It's the real deal. Dates from 444, AD, and it has, written in Druidic runes. My name is Excalibur. I was made for Arthur. That would blow an awful lot of minds. Why? Because if it had that on it, that would mean what? Not necessarily the entire myth is real.
That there's validity in it.
But there was a real Arthur, and he had a real sword named Excalibur. And if those 2 are true, then probably there was a guy, with long beard and white hair named Merlin fooling around in the shadows, and Uther and Guinevere. And if indeed such a thing could return out of the shadows of the past. Well, there's a title from a previous chapter. Why is that important? Throughout the Lord of the Rings, Tolkien is going to put forth this notion that shadows of the past are not only important, but they might be real. That is, what we often take to be mere fairy story, mere wise tale, might have more truth to it than we know. And maybe the truth is found in echoes that echo onto our own day. Okay? So, Bilbo stands up to defend Aragorn, Aragorn says to Boromir, no sweat. I know I don't look like Isildur and Elendil, and I'm just a poor copy of them. Okay? So he goes on and talks about what it is Rangers do. Bottom of 248. And yet less thanks have we than you. Because what did Boromir say? Gondor, man, we stand at the forefront. We're the ones holding Mordor back. All you people way up here in the north, you've got us to thank. So Aragorn's kind of trying to even out the scales a little bit. Travelers scowl at us. Countrymen give us scornful names. Strider I am to one fat man who lives within a day's march of foes that would freeze his heart or lay his little town in ruin, if he were not guarded ceaselessly. Yet we would not have it otherwise. That is, we don't want them thanking us for everything we do. If simple folk are free from care and fear, notice, simple folk free from care and fear, simple they will be, and we must be secret to keep them so. Why? We kind of think, hey, knowledge is everything. Knowledge is important. You know, be totally connected. I read a thing the other day about some stupid magician who's had 200 implants, chips and magnets put in his body to help with his illusions. Others, computer scientists have had chips put in so that they can connect with their computers. Okay? Why? Instantaneous knowledge. What's Aragorn saying here?
Ignorance is bliss.
He's saying, yeah, ignorance is bliss. But he's saying, we stand, and who's the fat man that he's talking about?
Innkeeper.
Barnum and Butterbur. He says, we stand sentinel. We stand guard so that he can run his happy little inn and not have to worry about any problems of the world. If simple they will be, and we must be secret to keep them so. That has been the task of my kindred while the years have lengthened, and the grass has grown. But why should they be kept simple? Why should they be introduced to the problems of the world? Don't they have a part in fixing the world? No, they don't. What's their world? It's Bree. It's Bree. That's it. They take care of Bree. Aragorn and the Rangers, they take care of everything outside of Bree. Who else? Where else? Borders of the Shire. That's why the Shire hasn't had any problems for years. Shire sounds wonderful, doesn't it? Not if you're one of those who has to stand guard and protect it. Okay? So, Gandalf, skipping a bunch, page 254. They've seen the ring, and Galdor's kind of like, how do I know this is really it? I mean, it doesn't say the one ring on it. Words didn't magically appear. You're like, I am Lord Voldemort above the ring. So what does Gandalf do?
Speak in the tongue of one.
He reads what the ring has inscribed. Ashnaz Durbatulak, Ashnaz Gimbatul, Ashnaz Thrakatulak, Ad Burzum Ishi Krumpatul. And the lights all dim and the flames, dim and everything. And people go, ooh. And Elrond's like, don't ever use that language in my home. Gandalf says, and let's hope that none will ever speak it here again. Now, it's not an accident that it sounds somewhat Germanic and somewhat like Asian Russian steppes, like Kurdish, Kazakh. Okay? So he says, don't ask your pardon. People need to know what we're dealing with. Okay? They talk about Gollum. We find out Gollum escaped, etc., etc. Gandalf talks about being captured by Saruman. which I don't have time, but I got to. 258, 259. So, he gets captured by Saruman, and they're talking about the 9 and such, page 259. And Saruman tells him, Gandalf, you're going to stay here. You're going to rest from your journeys for a while. Why? Top of 259. For I am Saruman the Wise, Saruman Ringmaker. He had him at Ringmaker. You know, Gandalf's antenna just went. Saruman of many colors. Gandalf says, I looked, saw that his robes, which had seemed white, weren't. They were woven of all colors. And if they moved, they shimmered and changed hue. I liked white better. White. It serves as a beginning. White cloth may be dyed. The white page can be overwritten. And the white light can be broken. Right? How can you break white light? Get a prism. And what's it do? Roy G. Biv. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. It's amazing. I remember that from my 6th grade. Okay? And Tolkien gives us this passage here that's really important for all of his side. He actually even kind of addresses it in this essay that he wrote about Beowulf. In which case, it is no longer white. You break the white light, it's no longer white. And he that breaks a thing to find out what it is has left the path of wisdom. So what does that mean? He that breaks a thing to find out what it is has left the path of wisdom.
Solomon?
Okay. How many of you, should I ask that question? How many of you have had, because I know the answer, English courses before, maybe high school, where it seemed like all you were doing was taking things apart. You had a poem, and you had to figure out what it is. And so what do? You take it apart. Okay? Tolkien's telling us that's leaving the path of wisdom. Because what happens when you take a poem and you take it all apart? You take all the words apart, you take all the lines apart. You end up with letters, words, lines.
No meaning.
You do exactly. It's the image that I used a couple weeks ago of the soup or the stew and the ingredients. Okay? He that breaks a thing to find out what it is. What's the thing he's broken? He was Saruman the White. He was the highest of their order. 5 members of this order. Saruman, Gandalf, Radagast the Brown, and 2 others, 2 blue guys, who were never named. Okay? So you have 5. The white was the highest. Now he's Saruman of many colors. And Gandalf's like, I don't understand the relation to you now. Okay? He that breaks a thing to find out what it is has left the path of wisdom. Don't speak to me as to one of the fools you take for friends. In other words, don't try to teach me. I haven't brought you here to be instructed by you, but to give you a choice. What's his choice? Join with me or rot. Join how? Let's get the ring and let's together take out Sauron. And Gandalf's like, I should have brought in a couple of rings. Gandalf's like, okay, only one finger. You know, if we had a ring like this, and I could put a ring finger in, you could put it, we could walk together. One thing, but he said, okay, so we can't do it. Maybe we can join with that power. Why does he suggest they join with Sauron? Look at the bottom of 259. It would be wise. There is hope that way. Its victory is at hand. And maybe we can bide our time and gradually turn Sauron to what? To our way of thinking. Maybe we can gradually get him to not be such a murderous thug. I mean, look at it. Maybe we can get him to go along with the high and ultimate purpose. Knowledge, rule, order. How's that for a motto for a state? Knowledge. Everybody wants knowledge. Rule. If you're doing the ruling, order. Come on, we can be a part of this. Gandalf laughs. Says, I've heard this kind of stuff before. And we have too in our world. You guys are too young to remember it. But in the 1990s, beginning around the late 80s, Congress every year had to pass MFN, Most Favored Nation, trading status with a variety of countries. The most difficult one every year
Big Red. No, wait, no, yeah.
was China. Why? Because China wanted to trade with us. China wanted us to buy their goods, and they wanted to buy some of our goods. But what always got mixed up with MFN, as it happens now, think Hong Kong, human rights issues. Because China's not so hot on human rights. That's lightotes, that's understatement. To say China is not so hot on human rights is a damning understatement. Okay? And so you had people always fighting against us. Well, it's not passing. Well, the government's idea, whether Republican or Democrat, it didn't matter. Whoever was in charge in the White House said, no, we need this. Why? Because we can use this, and we can use our trade with China to slowly move them in our direction. It's like it came straight out of Sarah Mann's mouth. And it never worked. Hasn't worked at all. They've got 1 million Uyghur, I can never figure out how to say that word, Uyghurs, Uighurs, native Muslims in prison camps today, literal concentration camps. 1 million of them. And the West and the UN and everybody knows about it. Why don't we do anything? Big, long, pointing missiles with nukes on them. Can't, genie's out of the bottle, so to speak. Okay? So Gandalf says no. And he gets rescued by Gwaihir the Wind Lord and jump up to 264, 265. How far have they gotten? How far are they towards the solution? None. They have nothing. So they're like, Tom Bombadil. Well, we didn't talk about a part with Tom Bombadil. Tom Bombadil tells Frodo, show me the ring, Frodo. Frodo's kind of like, why? And so he pulls it out, and he hands it to him. Tom Bombadil puts it in his hand. What happens?
Disappears.
It disappears. And Frodo's like, ah! What should Frodo be like at that point? It's gone. But because the ring already has some control of Frodo, it disappears. And he's like, whoa, chill. Frodo gets the ring back and he goes and sits down and wants to make sure it's the same ring. And he starts to slip out the door. And Tom Bombadil sees him. Ring appears to have no effect. So they're like, let's give it to him, Gandalf. Well, one, he wouldn't have come, so we can send it. No, he doesn't have power over the ring. Say rather, the ring has no power over him. He is his own master. Is anybody his or her own master? That is. That's what Gandalf's point is. It's not his problem. Whose is it?
Ours.
It's ours. It's our times also. Okay? So, Gandalf says, here's my worry. We give it to him, and he goes, la, 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 around Tom Bombadil land, and whoop, he loses it. Okay? So, Glorfindel, 266. 22 minutes. If the ring can't be kept, two things to do. Send it over the sea or destroy it. Well, no, that's one thing to do, because they can't send it over the sea. It's not their problem. They'd send it back. Okay? So, 267. Elrond says, nope. We have to walk into peril. We must send the ring to fire. Notice Elrond doesn't say, I will do it. I will take the ring. And I'll go, I don't know, Elvo Maya against, Sauron. Okay? Boromir's like, let's use it. No. Explain why. And finally, after silence, Frodo says, don't know the way. And what does Elrond say? Notice Elrond's language here is different than the language that Cate Blanchett uses in The Lord of the Rings. She's not there, but she does the voiceover for this kind of part. If I understand it right, all that I've heard, bottom of 270, this task is appointed for you, Frodo, and if you do not find a way, no one will. This is the hour of the Shire folk when they arise from their quiet fields to shake the towers and councils of the great. It's the hour of the Shire folk. The Cate Blanchett voiceover is, now it's time for the little people to do great things and disturb the plots of the big people. Like, even you midgets can be meaningful in life. It's utterly ridiculous. Okay? So, Frodo's going to take the ring. Who makes up the fellowship? Real quickly. Frodo.
Frodo,
Legolas, Gimli,
Okay, whoa. Back up. Who's...
Sam.
Yeah.
Mary.
Stuck at the hip.
Pippin,
Not them.
Later.
Well, they come later.
Gandalf.
Gandalf, Aragorn,
Gimli,
Legolas.
Gimli and Legolas. Why?
because the dwarves need to
Because-
represent the elves.
Represent dwarves and elves. And we got to make them learn to get along.
Boromir.
Boromir, why?
Because he represents the men.
Men.
He's going.
Aragorn's man.
He's going back
But
to.
He's going back home. It's on the way. Drop me off at. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 2 more. Why 2 more?
Mary.
Why does there have to be 9?
There's not.
9
Because
rings.
there's 9 black riders. So there's going to be 9 walkers to counter the 9 riders. I don't know. I kind of maybe would have thought of, hey, let's get some big, powerful horses and let's. So who does Elrond want to send? Oh, let's get some elf warrior.
Yeah.
Somebody big and stunning.
Mary.
And Gandalf's like, it's trust of friendship. He's like, okay, I'll agree to marry. But the young one,
Pippin's a dum-dum.
he's too flighty. And I'm going to send him back home for what reason?
Warn the Shire.
To warn the Shire. He doesn't get sent back home. The Shire doesn't get warned. And what happens? The second to the last chapter.
Destroyed.
The scouring of the Shire. It's because Pippin doesn't go back that the Shire isn't what Frodo wanted it to be when he left. He said, I will, leave because it'll make it easier to know that the Shire is the same and safe. Okay? But Gandalf persuades him. Little irony there.
Moria.
No, let him go too. Okay. So they leave. We're going to skip a bunch again. They go south and they try to go over the mountains first. And Caradhras the Cruel won't let them. So they take a journey in the dark. Page 297. Aragorn warns Gandalf. Okay. I say to you, if you pass the doors of Moria, beware. Okay? But Gandalf's been there before. That's where he got the map, Thror's map, that they used in The Hobbit. Got it from Thorin's grandfather. Okay? So they make their way to Moria, and they get to the doors of Durin. They get the elvish script to show up, and Gandalf can't figure out what it means. And he keeps going and going and going, and finally, what does it mean? He has to say one word.
Melon.
Friend. Say friend and enter. And you say friend, melon, the doors open up. But just before they go in, what happens, and what does it happen to?
The Watcher in the Water to throw it up.
The Watcher in the water, some octopus-like thing, throws out a tentacle, and of 9 different people, plus a horse, it grabs Frodo. Accident. Okay. So they go in. Page 313. I'm trying to get us literally done with this in 17 minutes.
But the Bridge of Khazad-dûm is the best part.
Keep tilting that up, forgetting there's a straw there. My kids were laughing at me because I'm retarded. Page 313. Sorry, not supposed to use that word. 313. So they're in this big hall in a cave. And it's pretty clear it's a guard room. I mean, there's old rusty armor and bones. And there's this well, and Pippin, being curious, he's in his tweens. Moved by a sudden impulse, he groped for a loose stone, let it drop. He felt his heart beat many times before there was any sound, and far below, plunk, and then an echo. What's that? Pippin. Fool of a took. Okay, notice that. Fool of a took. There's one person in the novel who calls other people fools, and it's Gandalf. You know, he's a semi-god. He can call people.
Yes, he can.
Yeah. So, this is a serious journey. Next time, throw yourself in. Now be quiet. And then there's quiet, and they're all going, please, 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 please. And then they hear that. Gimli, that's a hammer. So, Pippin gets his first watch, but Gandalf, being the softy he is, gives him a spell, and they find Balin's book. Now, if you ever have an opportunity to do this, and they allow you to, and you want to, go to Marquette University and go to the Tolkien holdings. Because Tolkien sold the manuscripts for The Lord of the Rings to Marquette University in the 1950s. Because he needed to raise cash to pay an income tax bill. And he sold them, all of them, for like 10 grand. Yeah, they'd be worth millions today. So you can go there, and it's a room not much bigger than this room. And then there's a little room off of it where all the manuscripts are, and what's called the Black Book of Mazarpool is, which is the book that Tolkien made up, mock-up book that they read from, Balin's diary. And it's got, soot smeared on it, and I'm pretty sure Tolkien cut his finger and dripped a little blood and smeared it. I mean, the whole 9 yards, okay? All the maps, all the drawings, they're all there, okay? For The Lord of the Rings, not the Silmarillion stuff. That's all Oxford. So, they read all this, and they read about, drums, 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 and then they hear drums, and then they're attacked. Page 330. And just before that. They run down the stair, and they get to the bridge. And Gandalf's like, I met something up there.
Best part.
Page 329. Actually, before that, page 327. It issued a counterspell. It nearly broke me. I spoke a word of command. Then go to 329. So Gandalf's down there. He's standing on the bridge. And this other thing comes on the bridge. It's got flames around it. It's dark. Legolas is scared. The orcs have all fled away.
It's a demon from the
And we hear a Balrog. A Balrog has come. Gandalf. Great. And I am already weary. Well, what's a Balrog?
Demon before
Demon.
Morgoth's time.
It's a Maya. It's the same kind of thing as Gandalf, but bad. Okay? So, Now you got the Balrog on one side of the bridge, Gandalf on the other. All the Fellowship are on the side they need to be on. They don't need to cross the bridge. But Gandalf's going to try and stop this thing. At one point, it's described as kind of having wings. At another point, it doesn't. Nobody's really totally 100% sure. So Gandalf says to the Balrog, "You cannot pass." The orc stands still. And then he says this: "I am a servant of the secret fire, wielder of the flame of Ainur. You cannot pass." See, the secret fire is not the flame of Ainur. The flame of Ainur, that's the sword that Gandalf has, that he found at the troll's place in The Hobbit. The secret fire, that's what dwells with Eru Ilúvatar. That's been called the creative spark. Some say that that's kind of the Holy Spirit. Okay, I don't really know. But I'm a servant of that. You cannot pass. Go back to the shadow. So it throws up its sword. Galandring glitters in answer. Gandalf tells him again, "You cannot pass." Aragorn's like, he's going to die. He rushes out. Boromir comes. Gandalf breaks the bridge. And the Balrog, as it falls, throws its whip, grabs Gandalf's leg, and he falls into the abyss and cries, "Fly, you fools." Now, if you get on the internet, I don't remember if there's only one person or if this has metastasized to more morons. But there's people who say that Gandalf is actually telling them how to get to Mordor here. Fly. Call up Gwaihir the Windlord and the Eagles when they get out of Mordor and hitch a ride. Seriously, some people think that's what no. Fly means leave. Okay? So they do. Gandalf dies. Lothlórien. Why is Lothlórien important? Galadriel. Just Galadriel? What about her husband?
No, just Galadriel.
Just Galadriel.
He's just a...
So she tests him.
He's husband number 2.
Is he?
No, I'm just kidding.
I was going to say, I don't think so. So she tests them when they are welcomed up into her treehouse. She lives in her treehouse. Okay? Boromir doesn't like this, and Aragorn's going to say, "Don't say anything bad about Galadriel, man. She's bad." Well, she's seen the gods, so you don't. So I'm going to skip a bunch that I usually don't. Go to the Mirror of Galadriel. And towards the end of that chapter, she takes Frodo and Sam to like a bird bath, a water head. And she says, "This is elf magic, Sam. You want to look?" Ooh, sure. What'll I see? Don't know. What does he see?
The Shire
The
Party.
Shire Party.
No, that's what.
He sees his father kicked out of his house. He sees the party tree cut down. He sees Bagshot Row being dug up. And what does he think? I've got to go back home. But he doesn't. Why?
Because Galadriel says that that's not happening. Just because you see it doesn't mean it's necessarily happening now.
Bingo. And she says not everything you see is going to happen. Okay? Sam, page 363. I wish I'd never come here. That means here specifically. And I don't want to see no more magic. No, I'll go home by the long road with Mr. Frodo or not at all. But if I do get back home, somebody's going to pay for it. So Frodo looks. What else did he see? He saw Frodo tied up, lying somewhere. Didn't know what that meant. It was the Shire images that angered him. So Frodo sees several things. And then he looks at Galadriel, and she says, "I see what you saw. And I see it all the time." And she holds her hands up, and Frodo is now let in on a little secret. What is it? She wears one of the 3 elven rings. Nina. Okay? She says, I know his mind always. He doesn't know hers because he doesn't have the one ring. And so they talk a little bit, and she says, here's what I think's going to happen when you do destroy the ring. All of this will what?
Go away.
Disappear. It will all die. There are no trees of Lothlórien in our world anymore, and the elves have all left. Okay? So she is tempted because Frodo says, you're wise and powerful and a knockout. Won't you take the ring? She says, you'll set up a dark queen instead of the dark lord. No, I passed the test. What test?
The test of the ring.
The test of the ring. Okay? Why else is this important? Her passing this test is kind of, I'm not saying that it definitely is, it's making up for a sin, literal, a sin that she did thousands of years ago. Back here in Valinor, and Galadriel was one of the elves here. Well, they were getting ready to leave Valinor to come to Middle-earth. She assisted in essentially, she was complicit, let me put it this way, in the death of other elves here. Okay? So the only way she could get to Middle-earth was they took the long road, they had to hike through the ice and everything. But she was marred by this. She was stained by this. And by passing this test, it kind of wipes the slate. Okay? So they leave. And when they leave, Galadriel gives gifts. Real quickly. What do all of them receive? They all receive kind of a kit, so to speak. Leaves of Lothlórien. You mean the literal leaves or the... Okay, little like brooches that tie their cloaks together. They get robes. Okay, they all get limbus bread, which is like Cliff Bars
On steroids.
on steroids, literally. Tolkien almost describes the limbus bread as like the Eucharist, like communion. You eat it and it just kind of keeps you going. Okay, what else? That's about it in terms of what they all get. What does Sam get?
Some soil.
Dirt.
For potatoes.
Okay. And what's he always complaining that he wished he had?
Potatoes.
Nope, not potatoes. Rope. Rope.
Elvish rope.
Use some rope. He gets elvish rope. Won't come untied if you don't want it to. Will come untied if you want it to. Okay? That's pretty cool. What does Boromir get? A big old WWE gold belt buckle. But it's not WWE, it's, Gondor's banished warrior, kind of thing. Okay? What does Aragorn get? He gets a sheath for his sword.
His sword will never be broken.
Sword that's drawn out of this will never break. Pretty good, seeing as it broke before. Sam we did. Merry and Pippin don't really get anything special.
Yeah, silver belt, something.
Yeah, they get the silver belt.
Legolas got a bow.
Legolas gets a bow and a quiver, if I remember right, that's like never empty.
Yeah.
Just
Intense.
just reproducing. That's totally cool. Let's see, Legolas. We're going to talk about Gimli in a moment. Frodo
It's a
gets.
star.
Vial of the water.
It's more than a light. It's a
It's
star.
more than a light. He gets the phial of Galadriel. Okay, so it's a little glass bottle that has water in it from the mirror of Galadriel. But the water that's in it caught light from what? Back at the mirror of Galadriel, he looks up, he sees her ring, and then he sees the star. The star is what's casting the light. What's the star? It's Eärendil. Okay? Eärendil is a star, but wait a second. Somebody we met is descended from Eärendil. How can you be descended from a star? Because Eärendil was one of Elrond's. Erendil was Elrond's father. Okay? He got what's called the Silmaril. This is in the Silmaril. And he used it to kind of rouse the gods to come and help in the Second Age battle against Sauron. Okay? And for that, the gods turned him into a star. Okay? And Sam realizes, oh, that's a connection. We're going to see a little bit later on. So the light from Erendil's star is captured in the water that's in this thing. Last person. What does Sam get? Because she doesn't get anything initially. He gets the cloak, he gets the little clasp, he gets the limbus. Woo, big deal.
You mean Gimli?
You mean
Gimli, sorry.
He gets a piece of her hair.
How does he get it though? He's kind of like,
He's bad.
and she's like, what would you like? He's like, I could ask. I couldn't ask. If it were permitted. I think he says 3, doesn't he? Or is it a single?
No,
a single, and he gets 3. A single strand, and they're all like whipping out their swords like, that's it. Dwarf dies, man. You know, because he had to be blindfolded to be brought in, right? Because dwarves and elves are like, you know, KKK and NAACP. They don't mix well, okay? And she's like, what would you do with it? I would encase it in clear crystal, and it would be the greatest heirloom of my people. And she's like, Gimli. And Celeborn's back to going. So she gives it to him. Okay? And then they leave. 1 minute.
Which people die?
They go down the Great River, and they get to Parth Galen. And we'll actually, we'll pick up with this because we can do this very last chapter at the beginning of next time. So we'll do 2 towers. We'll do 2 towers, but we'll start with breaking of the fellowship. Okay.
With Boromir
Now that's not nice.
When wasn't he though?